welcome to this talk that I am having on behalf of Nuestros Sonidos, the festival celebrating Latin music and Latin music culture with Carnegie Hall. As I mentioned, my name is Ytasha Womack. I'm here with Eddaviel. Eddaviel is an esteemed artist, uh, a graphic novelist, an illustrator, a fine artist, painter working in digital works. We have collaborated in several times and we're going to collaborate on larger scale projects as well. I'm a person who writes about Afrofuturism. This talk that we're doing is in celebration of the book, uh, The Afrofuturist Evolution. Eddaviel is one of the esteemed persons who I interviewed for this project. And this book explores how we can look at artists and thinkers who've explored Afrofuturist ideas in the context of space time, rhythm, narrative, and imagination and vision. So today, here with Eddaviel, my friend who is based in the Dominican Republic, but does as in many installation here in the U.S. and abroad and beyond. And welcome, Eddaviel.
Hello, hello. Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this beautiful project to explore Nuestros Sonidos. It is a pleasure for me all the time being creating and exploring different universe with you and exploring the idea of like the Afrofuturism ideas and all these universe that we have been just traveling through.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I have to say, so Adalvia and I have a funny backstory. I was a fan of Adalvia's work, looking at it online several years ago, and also looking for someone to illustrate a graphic novel concept that I had. And I reached out to him, and he responded. He, liked what I was doing, but was busy at the time. And some years later, at any rate, so, just you go about your life, you see murals around the city, you see art that you love. And some kind of way, I want to say it was like coming out of the pandemic, you reached out to me to let me know that you were in Chicago. And we met at the Chicago Cultural Center to see Robert Cole Scott show, which is an art show. Robert Cole Scott, an esteemed um, African American artist who was heavily influenced stylistically, I would say, from the Caribbean, the Spanish speaking Caribbean as well. And it influenced the design. So Adavio and I were walking around. I was talking about some of my favorite murals. I was thinking this was Adavio's first time to Chicago. Little did I know, many of my favorite murals around the city were created by Adavio. Because he had been here many times. He didn't quite realize I was in Chicago. And then at some point it all synergized. And from then on out, we've kind of been twins. There have been moments where
No,
we,
yeah, it's have been like I remember you post something and I was just like, oh wow, she's based in Chicago. I was just like, she's in Chicago. I was just like, oh, I am here. Let me and I wrote you like I will be in Chicago in these dates and that was like beautiful reconnecting. And I was just like looking at my phone, remembering like 2017 that is just
oh,
like
yeah. And this is when I was exploring doing design work for the project I wanted him to illustrate for. And he did some sample illustrations. Ah,
yeah, I love this one.
oh my gosh, I have not seen these since we spoke that time in those early days. This is so funny. Um, but So,
Yeah,
sometimes.
that was the time when I was doing the project with Afropunk.
Hmm.
And they posted a lot of my artwork in different things, and I was part of Afropunk Paris
Hmm.
that you connect with my work, and we start talking, and we start like creating this project together. But in this moment was not the time for, and it's
Yeah.
just like time passed after like we reconnect again in that was 2017. We reconnect again like I think it was like
20
2019.
20 twenty twenty
No,
one, maybe, wasn't it?
yeah, 2021 was
Hmm.
after pandemic.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now we're twins. As a matter of fact, when we did finally meet, we found we were wearing the same outfit. We had the same hairstyle. We had the same
Uh,
eyeliner.
yeah, in this moment I was with the hair blue
Right.
and you was with the hair with like the two
And mine was
colors.
blonde on one side, his was
Yeah.
blue on the same side. Even now, we're like matching, but my hair is to this side, his hair's to the other side. I don't know. Like we both have on a necklace. I had on a vest earlier. I took it off. So Adalio and I always wind up twinning jewelry. You know.
Yeah. She's like the twin between like the Caribbean and United States, like coming bringing everything together.
Right. Right. So it's as a matter of fact, we were walking down the street once in Hyde Park here in Chicago, and people are so used to us kind of walking down the street. This one guy saw me without a Davio, and he said, "Well, where's your twin?" So thank you, Eddaviel, for being here. But one of the projects that Eddaviel was working on when we did finally come together, he was putting together a book called A Shoe. What's the subtitle? A Shoe,
I
the
showed the most misunderstood entity in the universe.
yes. And he had just put those illustrations together and put the book out. And I was really excited about it. And now this book has won several awards. Um, you won what are some of the words you won? Because you won one that was based in the
One of
Dominican Republic.
it was like it have been presenting in different places, and one of the awards, like I was just presenting the book in the Salón del Cómics de Valencia in Spain,
Mm-hmm.
and like one of the awards, like that one was the best graphic novel and best spiritual book in the International Latin Awards in
Mm-hmm.
LA. And it's have like some mentions in some project in the University of Texas, and in the same time, I have been exploring a lot of these ideas with Darren Lopez, the writer of the book, and we have been just working together, creating this world, exploring this world universe of like how African stories, African spiritualities, the Yoruba spirituality arrived to the American continent in the process of slavery, and how everything started like shaping with different names, directions, and different themes in this area of the world, like how you have like different way of speaking about that between like the Dominican Republic, Cuba, here in the States, like how it's since in New Orleans, in Brazil, that is like a big community following all these ideas and like all this part. I will share like maybe my screen that I can show like some of the images of the project.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because one of the things that I like best about the project is one, it's a graphic novel about Ishu. Ishu is a central figure in the Ifa paradigm out of Yoruba, which of course um, had a lot of roots in what became Santeria and Candomblé, a celebrated religion of African origin. And it's one of those kinds of stories and characters that is to have it depicted in a graphic novel makes it connect, I think, to a lot of people who aren't as familiar with the Pantheon. And they could see that some of these stories are both You could say they're kind of morality tales. Ishu is sometimes framed as a trickster. Um, but the images, the layering of it, I think is really stellar. Can you just talk a bit about how this book came together?
Then I met Darren time ago, like because like the same way he was looking for an illustrator for his graphic novel, and he was just like writing. A he's a writer. He have written some children books, and this is his first graphic novel. And he is like a Puerto Rican Colombian born in the United States, and it's like all this mix, all his exploration of the Ifa corpse, the Santeria, the uh, spirituality, and how this spirituality arrived to this continent, and it's like talking about all that. We start making this project together, and we was a long time because I was doing several projects in this moment, but I just love the story behind, and it was just like, oh yeah, I am doing it, and we start working in all the details. One of the things I love from the project is like, we did a really great team because like it was not only. That he write the book was just like we have the whole freedom that he was telling me like, okay, we can explore this like this, but I was telling him like, yeah, but we can explore this like this to just like the good combination of how like the storytelling was shaping together into the illustrations and the writing, and how we bring together a good storytelling. I really love the way how this story fluent. Like for example, this page is like one of my favorite pages in the book.
Hmm.
It's just like how the time is passing and how they are in the process of like praying and talking with the sacred tree with Iroko. And it's just like
Oh,
how
and I have to
everything.
note there, if you go back a sec, Ishu was there in the corner, in the red hat.
Yeah. You can see there is a lot of details
Mhm.
that are connected between this page and another pages. Like this page go back to another page into the story in another story of like there is like five different tales that together they create a book, and then it's just like how that everything is coming together.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful, and you can't escape the your use of like circles, and how you bring so many nature-based elements into not just this story, but into a lot of your storytelling. What would you say are some of your influences, artistically or visually?
Oh, there is a lot. It's just like I remember since when I was a kid, I was just like going into science fiction, fantasy, mythology. I was all the time exploring this universe. I have been a great lover of the labyrinth and the swirly spider. That have been something really present in all my art since I was a kid. So some of my favorite like movies, books was like the never ending story.
Mm-hmm.
I just love this book and the movie. I will say that this is like one of my main influence. I love Dragon Ball too. It was something I grew with that. Caballeros del Zodiaco. I love like Spartacus and the Sun Beneath the Earth. Spartacus y el Sol bajo el mar.
Mm-hmm.
And there is like I love like I grow in a town in the south of the Dominican Republic, and coming from this town, I was listening a lot of story when I was a kid about like mystical story about all the mythology, legends, everything happening, and people believing that there is a witch around. There is like Baka, Siwapa, that are like creatures from the Dominican folklore.
Mm-hmm.
And just growing with that, and in the same time, there is this TV show called The Storyteller that I love it so much. And I was just like thinking, like, wow, it would be great to have like a TV show like this, but with the Dominican story. It's like there is
Mm-hmm.
like different things like this that shape a lot the influence. I remember I grew up listening like even in music. I was in music very. I love storytelling in music, and this is I remember I when I listen Vico C, Viernes 13, it's just like going into how he was telling the story of Friday 13. It's
Mm-hmm.
just like era una tarde nublada, los adornos de Halloween donde quiera estar. It's just like going through the narrative of that, or going through Thriller with Michael Jackson, that is just like going how the narrative in the music videos go.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I was a complete fan of visual storytelling, and
Mm-hmm.
every time when some kind of like music, videos, books was bringing me a lot of imagination, I
Mm-hmm.
was in, because I was in the way of like narrating scenes, and I think that that is like very present in my art, that
Mm-hmm.
it's like the narrative of things that I love, just creating stories.
Right. And one of the many things that Eddaviel and I bond on is our enthusiasm for Afrofuturism. And so much of the work that you do is Afrofuturist. It's pulling from uh, not just how I talk about imagination, liberation, mysticism, and technology, but it's also engaging uh, the thinking about these ideas, but from the perspective of being in the Dominican, that cultural reference point. And you call your one of your art series, you call it Grenapunk. And could you talk a bit about that as well?
Mhm. Oh yeah, it's just like I remember when I did the art show, the first time I presented the show completely, it was in Chicago in Connect Gallery.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the first time that we really have a conversation in public, that I invite you to be part of this conversation, exploring the ideas between like Greña punk and Afrofuturist. Like Greña is the way we how we call the hair, the afro in the
Mm-hmm.
Spanish country, mainly in the Caribbean, when the hair is just like all crazy, or just like that there is difficult to go into, and it's a word that it's a kind of like when somebody told you like you need to clean this greña, you need to order, you need to, and it's like it's a kind you have a kind of like being a distortion revolutionary. It's like the greña is my greña. And this is a kind of like one of the options what I decide to use the word greña for naming the show. And greña punk, the punk in that is like the revolution, the fighting for. And in the same time is the way that how coming from a Spanish country, coming from a narrative that used the Spanish as the main language, is like Greña is the way that I identify a lot of the world I have been exploring into the that go into the mystical, into the magical, into the future, into the all these new universe that I love to explore,
Mm-hmm.
and that have been and exploring not only the future, exploring the past. And I love so much ideas like the uh, steampunk, cyberpunk, desert punk, all these ideas of like retrofuturist, or the future, absolutely. And I love just like exploring all this universe. And I will say that Greña Punk is the way of like seeing this universe from a Caribbean perspective, from an Hispanic Caribbean perspective.
Hmm. Right. And we actually did a talk about Grenapunk because you did a show here in Chicago with the Connect Gallery. Um, and it was very beautiful work. I don't know. It was emotionally touching, actually, to look at how you engage a lot of the sort of water mythology mythos um, coming out of the Dominican and intersecting sort of these nature-based ideas, integrating it seamlessly into technology. And the magic, the lore, the depth to the pieces were, it was both inspiring and emotional for reasons I can't quite explain.
That's beautiful, and I feel that this is like one of the beautiful things that we can connect through art, through different like experience, being you exploring the Afrofuturism and me exploring like the Grenapunk ideas, how everything in the end is connected. And one of the things that, for example, me that I love from this show, it's just like all the connection that it is between the Afro the indigenous from the Caribbean and the European stories, whole like everything. I was just like merging everything as a part of like my whole life experience because growing in the Caribbean, growing with like Catholicism as a main religion, like my family is Catholic, and I have like family that is coming from the Santeria, from all these magical spirituality, and I have like all this mix of things of religions and ideas and how these merge together. It's something that is very put inside the Grenapunk concept. And I have the opportunity to be presenting the show not only in Chicago in Connect Gallery, it was last year in Freeport Art Museum, and it was in Puerto Rico as a part of the Science Fiction and Fantasy Congress of the Caribbean with the University of Puerto Rico presented in the El Cuadrado Gris Gallery. That in the same time is beautiful being sharing with different people around the world all these ideas. And like for example, part of the show there is a series called Afro Inc. That
Hmm.
this series I have the opportunity to present it in Canada, in French, in different places too.
Yes, no, that's your work is always so inspiring. And when I had a my residency in Dakar, I was the residency was the Black Rock Senegal residency held by Kehinde Wiley, and I was exploring water mythologies, or water-based spirituality, water spirits, and thinking about the relationship between that and dance. And I decided to take some of the prose and poetry that I was doing and put it into a zine. I'm a person who does a lot of long form work, books, scripts, but I wanted to put together like these small books, informed by this sort of zine ethos. And in writing about these water based spirituality, when I decided to look for illustrations, I reached out to Eddaviel. And so there were several images that were part of the Grenapunk series that I was able to um, use, thank you very much, Eddaviel, in the zine project. So one of those zines was called Liquid. Um, and another zine that came out of that project was called Fluid. Fluid was actually showcased in Charlotte, um, at the prominent African American museum that was based there. That also a part of uh, the sort of celebration of works inspired by Dakar and Black Rock, Senegal, and I am very, very appreciative of being able to
And
use some of those images and have them
and I
paired.
am so happy that they can connect with you, because in the same time, it's just like beautiful, just feeling like how your writing connects a lot with what I am doing, with my illustrations. How like everything's merged in a different point, and how this connect the experience of like African from the United States, and the African experience in the Caribbean too, and how all these having like different mixes, like having different cultural mixes, having different things, how there is like something that bring us together in the creative process, and there is a lot of different things. And in the same process that you are telling about liquid, that when we was talking about that, I was just like, oh, that's beautiful, because like water is one of the main elements I explore in my art. Because me coming from an island that is just like water everywhere, and in the same time, like I don't know, even the process of the zodiacal symbols, like I am a Pisces that is water all the time. It's just like coming to that, into the mystical space, into the cosmos. It's just like I feel really connected to the water, and how the water have been shaping a lot of what I do in my art, the movements and all these scenes.
Yeah, and I think for me, I grew up by Lake Michigan, which is not an ocean, but you cannot see to the other side of it. So it doesn't give you the feel of a lot of your typical lakes. And I think thinking about the Potawatomi stories about the lake that I learned later, or just my own relationship to lakes, or in I would say African diasporic, Latin diasporic mythos. There's always the celebration of spirits in the lake, spirits in the rivers, and uh, you just think about how, I mean, obviously water sustains life, but how that plays out in terms of people's beliefs or spiritual or mythological creations and storytelling, gets really, really interesting. So, while so a lot of the imagery that I've used from Eddaviel, he'd already created. I said, "Hey, look, I wrote this whole piece, this zine collective on water mythologies." And he's like, "Oh, great! I have some images," and his images matched perfectly. So it wasn't something he was being commissioned to do. It was a very seamless a seamless interplay. And then later, when Eddaviel came to Illinois, he was doing a lot of work in Rockford. But before that, I have to make sure I add that the Fluid Zine was a part of the Gantt Museum. And that exhibit was a highlight of works inspired by Dakar, and I was very honored to have the project Fluid showcase there. So so I see a lot of rhythm in your illustrations, and I didn't quite think about rhythm as a visual aesthetic until until I actually went to Dakar and read more about Senghor's work. Senghor Leopold Senghor, first president of Dakar, was part of the Negritude movement, and he wrote a lot of poetry and also theoretical text about rhythm, not as just rhythm in music and rhythm in dance, but also rhythm in visuals. And this idea of repetition of patterns he saw as an African aesthetic, certainly an African aesthetic that took root in Latin America and other parts of African diaspora. And so Senghor said that. Also, a gentleman named Tertelon Lee, who started something called rhythmism. That's how he described his futuristic fine art and comics. And I think it's interesting. I mean, when you think about rhythm and you think about your illustrations and the fine art piece, what comes to mind?
There is a lot of like movement in my art. This is like part of the expression. Like, for example, for me, I love uh drumming, tambores. Like, I love being all the time. It's just like sometimes if I am not drawing, I am doing something with my hands. There is like complete movements that I am just like playing. It is like part of like my Caribbean experience. I grow like uh, doing something with my hands all the time. Like, and I love like every kind of drums, like all the tambores, la tambora, that is like very deep into all the Caribbean music. And this part, and I love dancing. It's just like dancing is one of my favorite things in earth. I love like all the Caribbean musics. I love like different music from around the world. I love experimental dancing, contact dance. I have a lot of friends who I dance everywhere where I visit, and just like all the time, okay, let's dance. This is like one of the things that I need to do all the time. And I will say that I can feel this in my illustration because it's like a really big part of my personality. And like this is why you have like a rhyme into the storytelling, into the way of doing everything, into the movement. It's something that I don't know. I will say that I can't hide from my drawings because like this feeling of the rhyme, it's go through everything. And I have
Mhm.
the same rhyme like even when I was doing the graphic novel or all the scenes, I need to have a sequence of things that I can feel that is moving. And when I feel that, I can even feel the sounds, I can feel the music, I can feel like what is happening in this process. Even when I am writing something or going through something, I keep thinking in the sounds, in the ambience, in different things. And it's just like for me, music, I love all kind of music. And there is music for every moment. I am like the kind of person that, for example, I love salsa, but if I am listening salsa, I can't paint. I
Mm,
need to be dancing.
I can't
Uh,
either.
like
I
like
can't.
for painting, I need to be listening like some metal or minimalist or classical music.
Mhm. Yeah, same thing for me as a writer. I cannot listen to salsa while I'm writing.
Yeah,
Um,
and I feel like reading your writings too. I feel that there is a lot of music. There is a lot of sounds in what you create. Like for example, the Afrofuturist in the book, the first book, it's just like there is a lot of music inside everything you explore. It's
it's
like
funny.
how do you feel the music in your creations?
Well, I grew up as a dancer, dancing all the time, taking all the dance lessons. It's tap, it's ballet, it's modern. But I also grew up in a family and a culture that was very big on dancing socially. So
Mm,
I went on to, of course, trained in dance and doing all the social dances, hip hop, house music culture, the partner dance stepping. And then when I came out of college, I started immersing myself more in salsa and samba, in addition to, of course, going to house music parties and, other spaces. I learned flamenco. I start off as a tap dancer, so it's like rhythm and music is all around me. And by the time I wrote the first book, Afrofuturism, the world of Black sci-fi and fantasy culture, I was actually teaching dance to kindergarten students. And so I feel
Mm.
like the rhythm and the peppiness of having to keep them moving, teaching them everything from hip hop to salsa to yoga. I think you could feel that in the Afrofuturist text because I was writing that book in the evening and sometimes the morning, and then in the afternoons teaching dance. And the new book that I have, I actually have, I have a whole section on rhythm, but I also talk a lot about dance, making time for dance, realizing or being told by one of my other collaborators, John Jennings, who did the cover for the Afrofuturist Evolution. He said that I actually write like a dancer. I don't think I give it. I hadn't given a lot of thought to that. But speaking
No,
of dance,
and that's beautiful.
mhm, I actually
That's beautiful.
I actually quoted you in this book, The Afrofuturist Evolution, talking a bit about dance. I'm not sure if you remember that, but you were talking about you talked about how important dance was for you, but you said, oh, your father said that the key to a happy life is to do 5 merengues a day.
Oh yeah, and this is like one of the things that I love from my fathers. It's like my fathers, they're just like so unique and happy, and just like seeing all my parents' experience, like my mother, my father, they keep dancing all the time in the patio, like they keep moving the body and all the time and things, and it's just like having this, my parents telling me like. No, the kids of happiness is just like 5 merengues every day. And when you see like, and depending, because if you dang a perico ripiao, that sometimes they are like so long and so fast, I think you
Right.
sometimes can need just one.
Right, just one really fast merengue
One really fast
dance.
merengue, you have like all the movements. I'm talking about that. I remember that one of my favorites merengue, talking about storytelling, movement, and all the things. I love like Sisi Emperatriz. I remember this merengue was just like going into the storytelling, the way like the story was going. I was just like, oh, I love that. And it's just like, and that's connect with the things I was mentioning before. Whole life for me the storytelling, the story behind everything is like very important. I have been all the
Mm-hmm.
time just like, oh yeah, I love like visualizing scenes. That's make of myself like a visual artist when I can like feel the
Mm-hmm.
story into a piece. And it doesn't matter that it's just like there is like a lot of like classical music, minimalistic music that I can just listen and just with the sound I can create this story in my mind that I can just feel like, oh yeah, I I see that. This
Right,
bring me to this universe.
right. Well, if you could stop sharing for just a moment, I wanted to read a section of this book where I quote you or and talk about you. Can I
Let-
do that?
Of
Woohoo.
course, let me see where
Or
stop
yeah,
sharing.
right. Okay, I can't see you. Where are you, Eddaviel?
I'm here.
Yay,
Perfect.
there you are. Fantastic. Okay, so this is again this book, The Afrofuturist Evolution, which will be out March 25th. Um, and it's chapter 18, and nature story, climate change and our stories of the land. Each fall, Illinois' Synipsey Park transforms into a forest of the future. Somnium, the Book of the Forest Lament, is an immersive multimedia art experience cultivated by artist Eddaviel Edison Montero. He works with some 30 community members to bring the spectacle of the living forest of a future to life. A sea green portal stands as an interdimensional arc bearing images of newborn life. Humans are no more, and the environment has evolved beyond the realm of the imagination. Giant glow in the dark jellyfish are now earthbound and abide in the trees. The Tully monster is reborn as the beauty it once was. A towering mass spirit twirls, much like a Beto, the night spirits of the Ogu of Benin, Togo, or Nigeria. A hulking snake of many colors lines walking trails as audiences follow the spirit of the forest, one who speaks through the Inriri bird deeper into the world of wonder. The story draws from Teano myths and an Afrofuturist lens of Eddaviel's home and the Dominican Republic, all commingled with the prehistoric reimaginings of his colleagues in Illinois, USA. I wanted to tell a story from the perspective of the forest, says Eddaviel. The forest speaks, and this lush wonder only compels the countless patrons to go deeper with the land's magic. Is the forest speaking to us? Do we hear the message?
Oh, that's so beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Well,
And
it's beautiful because it was my attempt to capture the beauty and wonder of turning a forest into a nighttime futuristic water land of jellyfish and tilly
yeah.
monsters.
Yeah, and talking about like all this exploration, this is like talking about dance, about visual, about everything. This right now is one of my favorite projects ever because like I have the opportunity to work with more than 30 different artists to bring this universe into Earth to create a crazy, beautiful project where every kind of art comes together. In this project, we have live music, music created by Raymond Hackes. We have like writing with Odilius Black, Emily Clonicky. We have like a lot of dancers coming together to express everything's happening. We have like a lot of different artists, creators, puppet masters. We have like it's great. And all my favorite artists of Rockford City are there, like David Stoker, Emily Clonicky, like Alice Red. She's like a great filmmaker and have been part of the project. Like I created this project with Emily Clonicky some time ago, and right now there is like one, two, three
Mm,
different editions, and this year the number four will come. The number four will be focusing the hollow earth. Will be like exploring these ideas, like what is behind all like ideas. Like when I was a kid, I loved so much Jules Verne
mm,
and the travel to the center of the earth and things like this. And it was just like and Spartacus and the sun beneath the earth. That is like an animation exploring like what is inside of the earth,
mm,
what is like there is another sun there inside, there is like a universe, there is like a lot of things happening there, and in the same time there is like what all the conspiracy theories about like other living creatures
mm,
living there. It's just like all the esoteric ideas for that too. It's just like a lot of like crazy universe that I can't wait to explore, bringing all the mythologies, magic, all these futuristic elements, bringing the past and everything. And right now, I have started all the project with all my friends. We have like some meetings and different things and bringing all the ideas together, how everyone in the team is bringing something that, okay, I want to bring this, I want to build this, I want to construct this, like how like Jenny Matthews, Sad, Patrick, Chroma Club. all these people that are part of this project, Sam Kinsley, David Stoker, how everybody's bringing something. And one of the beauty of the project is like bring artists from different background, from different nationalities, from different places, from the Rockford community, from Spain, like Veronica, artists from like every color, shapes,
Mm-hmm.
everything. It's just like one of the main things of the project is bringing all the community together, all the different kind of art together. Like the project is a melange of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that is like one of the beautiful things in art, how we can bring all that together. And the project is supported by the Rockford Area Art Council. And one thing, I just been here in the state this week because the project won an award as the best production of the year by by the city of Rockford and with the Rockford Area
Wow.
Art Council. Yeah, I don't have the award here with me right now, but I will send you some photos of the presentation and things.
Well, one, I have to say, it was a fantastic experience. And in addition to creating that experience in Rockford, Illinois, you also put out a publication. And I had the pleasure of writing for two of those publications. Here's one of the books. And I was going to read from the one you did, the Book of Dreams and Nightmares, Somnium. So in the book, the Afrofuturist Evolution, I write about kind of the prehistoric meets, future, the forest taking over in the future. And I had an opportunity to come out and do a reading then. But the previous year, your theme was dreams and nightmares. And so, and I decided, and you asked me to write a piece for the book. Obviously, this is the artwork for the cover, illustrated by Eddaviel, no doubt. And I just wanted to read it, if that's okay.
That's perfect.
I'm just going to read this. This poem's a bit sizable, but I'm just going to read this piece. A night vision of daylight. I awakened one morn as the spark of night, the strength of 1,000 peoples. Rooted in memory, tracked by stars, I stood at the helm of the barge of my life, reimagined, remembering the verbal battles I'd won, the small piece of land I saved in this life a lifetime ago, as in perhaps a decade in years. I stood tall before the others, fighting the good fight, supernatural they thought I was, and disappeared I did, into their night and my night to refresh myself. Some time went by. The anger dissipated. They are good years. The meditation, melting the feelings away, but not the memory. It was buried, like those doppelganger worker shopties in the funerary box, who come alive in the other life to make things easier in the other life. But this season I took to the peaceful life, one immersed in pretty paints and visionary words, shaded trees and backyard cafes and sauntering in bookstores, and the rows and rows of books and comics and the space of space to be of words and story and text and image. I dream awake and walk the terrain of a joy. I centered myself there and it was good. And then one dusk, a metro train ride rattled the energy. It was the fall equinox, or perhaps the rattling rest, a short break unsettled by the reintegration and the recognition of all the work after work and nonstop work, of the parsing of words among battle with what would be shapers of my imagination. And I awaken as if from a dream, and I count coins of copper and nickel because summer is now fall and train rides demand fare. A squeaky train wheel calls for oil. The message is liquid clear. I do not capitulate to the melancholy of fall. I wrestle it down. I claim the fabulous fall. offset with fashion, fashionably, with shiny metal accents. And I did it before when I stood at the helm of the night's barge selling the sky. Supernatural I was, and belief. It moves through like a sword slicing through false pretense. I awakened with Isis on my mind, remembering her sickle in the battle and the victory, the one where I defeated land with words and belief with ancestral memory or my own memory, piecing together Osiris and letting him go, and found peace. I don't know why I forgot or remembered. Had I awakened from a dream or reawakened into a new and glorious one where I stand as a hero of my own life, arms outstretched, feathered like Isis, I say, let the prosperity reign from the Pleiades, joy be prescient, of joy is more asserted. I take in the night, in the day, in my backyard, and say, Ashe, and the night, in the wraps me in love hugs, because the sun is a night star too. And thank you for one asking me to participate and providing a platform to share in that way. And I just have to say, Eddaviel, that working with you and being able to share with you, I think so much of our synchronicity comes from this celebration of rhythm, this valuing of art, reflecting on nature, but also, looking at this Grenapunk Afrofuturist way of engaging imagination and technology and freedoms. It's a delightful journey to be a part of. And one other thing I have to share, we did I did use some of your art for this project. Star City also now available. Yes, and this too is a Grenapunk piece. If you open the book like so, you get to see this fantastic image illustrated by Eddaviel. And with that, Eddaviel and I could talk for hours and hours, but we're going to wrap up. And I just wanted to ask you if there's anything you just want to share about your experience in art with our listeners.
Uh, One of the things that I was like when you was talking about the publication Somnium, one of the things that I was sometimes like with the difficulties for like publishing a book, doing a book, and all this process, there is a lot of ideas that sometimes it take too much to make it with a big publisher or making something. And one
Mm-hmm.
of the main things that I was just like talking with one of my best friends, Odilius Black, a science fiction writer from the Caribbean, from the Dominican Republic. He's just like amazing. And we create together a publisher house called Mentes Extremophilas, mimes who adapt to the most extreme condition of the imagination. And one of the main things with this publisher, we have been working together with Odilius Black, Emily Clonicky, and I. We have been like creating a lot of different things and publishing some different books like Somnium where you are part of and publishing the issue, the most misunderstood entity in the universe, publishing some of like the Grenapunk things like Afroin's books and different things. And like for example, one of the things we have been thinking a lot in the project, it's like we want to make a publisher house, but not really like for publishing a lot of books. We want to manage this publisher like it will be a music project that
Mm-hmm.
imagine like two, three peoples come together to create an album, a musical album, and they do that. They are not like working in a million sims, like publishing 30, 40 books. They are just publishing like, oh no, this is the new project. And with this, like the last project we published was Travel to the Center of the Myth that is like a historical fantasy based in the first book written in this continent by an European in a European language by the monk Fray Ramon Pané, and he writes about the mythology of the Indians of the Caribbean in the Colon time when he traveled to the Dominican Republic, and he was in the Dominican Republic writing all the ideas of the goddess of the mythologies and everything. And Odilius Black and I was just like exploring all this into a fantasy story, into an historical fantasy where he really traveled to all these mythologies to bring this to a book together. It's just like
Mm,
a fantastical book that we published with the National Publishing was a collaboration with the National Publishing House of the Dominican Republic, with the International Book Fair, and we published the first edition and we sold it completely in the book
mm,
fair because, like, one of the things I feel like people is hungry and waiting for new stories. People is waiting for like new stories, and like for example, me that I'm coming from the Dominican Republic, that as I grow reading a lot of like science fiction from another countries, I when I was a kid, I would love to have like a science fiction or fantasy story from my country with like things that I can be connected and things that can be like, oh, that's from here, that's that. That is like I living about that, I know about that, that I can create this cultural connection with myself.
yes, there's a lot of excitement and personal growth and collective insights that we gain by reading the fiction and the art and listening to the music from um, not just our own cultures, but other cultures, other nations. And when you see yourself in works that could be from another cultural vantage point or another space, and you feel that connection, it's just a celebration of our unity in the universe. And with all the work around Afrofuturism, Grenapunk, it's there's a desire to connect more in our society, to find that connection through the music, through the art, and to celebrate the fact that we're here on this great earth plane, and to celebrate that we're all in a broader universe. And so, with that, Eddaviel, can you share with everyone where they can learn more about your work and find some of your pieces and buy your works?
Uh, some of my books can be found in Amazon or in Mentes Extremophila's website. Uh, I posted a lot of things mostly in Instagram as Eddaviel. In Instagram, you can find everything I do. And if you write in internet Eddaviel, you will find everything about me, being good or bad. I don't know because I have to say it's something magical having a artistic name that is unique. That right now in internet, everything you find there is me, and that's great and beautiful. But in the same time, it's just like I don't compromise everything. That if you find something that can be like, this guy is crazy.
Right. It's all in the myth. Uh,
Yeah,
well, thank you so much, Adavio. You're amazing. This has been fantastic, and I look forward to sharing with you soon. And thank you,
thanks.
everyone. Thank you, Carnegie Hall. Thank you, participants and all listeners, those who are sharing with Nuestros Sonidos. And thank everyone who's going to be checking out the Afrofuturist Evolution, uh, this book here.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you so much. You are amazing, and I can't wait to see what we will do together in the future. And I can't wait to read the book completely because I haven't.
I know. Okay. All right. Talk to you guys later. Bye.